here with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side till the day I die. 'Cause baby, ecstasy is in my hand. Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's fine. Oh, now you done piss me off. You went done something you shouldn't have done. Baby, I'm mad. I'm going on. Oh, I'm going on.
It's impossible to do a fadeaway and turn on the microphone at the same time. But that's as close as I get to being able to shorten that song. If I had the proper software, I could make a recording that was a shorter version, and that would work with this broadcast software. But that's the best I can do, y'all. Anyway, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. Tea time in London, perhaps. Keep reverting to that. I think I really want to have tea time in London. Or no, actually I prefer to have tea time in Wellington. Under the olive tree. Anyways, so today, open questions. Anybody who has any questions regarding predator tanks, seahorse tanks, fish-only tanks, reef tanks, SBS tanks, LPS tanks, mixed reef tanks. You know me, I love the mixed reef tanks. The more I can mix up the reef, the better. And of course, any questions that beginners might have for setting up your own nano or extravagant reef aquarium. Whatever you have the budget for, I have the time to help you. So I'm here on the YouTubes at your disposal. You know, making myself useful and whatnot. That is, if YouTube would allow me to. Just saying. Anyways, so how are you doing today, Mr. Belushi? We do have chats enabled. Oh, not necessary. We can just use that and boom. Oh, look at that. And let's see here. While I'm waiting on questions, let's check in on the big view of the reef tank here. Ariel, the flame angel, or Hime's successor. We don't like to say replacements. We like to say successors. She's been out a lot more. Of course, you know, as soon as I say that, she goes and hides again. Oh, there she is again. Since Mai and Leo have been put back in this tank, she's kind of felt a little more bold, a little more confident. But you can tell your flame angel fish is well adapted if you never see them. You know, if you just see them between the rocks here and there. I mean, you not never see them. They could be dead. No, that's not generally thriving when they're dead. That's certainly, you know, a condition that can be improved upon. Get another towel, dry him off better. His legs too. Ah! The dog is now out of the bath, and I'm trying to manage the further drying and treatment of him.
Come on.
Dingo had to have his half fur coat there, bathed, you know. Oh, I thank you, sir. This one here. This one here is definitely progressing. And, let's see if I can zoom in on that freaking wicked sponge right quick. Right click on the thing, configure, video input, and webcam thing with little directions. Okay. Show man. Slide it over. See right there? Check that out. Freaking, I don't even know what kind of sponge that is. I'm calling it a finger sponge because that sounds right. You know, I've forgotten more about this hobby than most people have learned. Okay, so enough of that one. Let's check on the other reef, yeah. Halfway decent view of it. But I think I can improve a little bit. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go. So, my new JBJ grabber tool. I might have to do a video just on it because it is, it's wonderful. You might notice how clean my sand looks right now. That is due 100% to that JBJ tool. That's not really helpful. So I'll just turn it off for now. So I use a little floor lamp with a little side lamp as supplemental lighting for all that grass that grows in the 55 gallon. You can't really see a difference, you know, when it's off and on, but any 6500K spectrum is going to cause plants to grow, and every little bit you can add causes that much more growth. And you know, it's an LED, so it's not like it's costing a lot of electricity. 4 watts, I think it is. In fact, I may even be mistaken on the bulb that I have in there. I may have had the smaller, little 10,000 Kelvin bulb in there. But either way, just, you know, a little extra light helps the freaking plants grow. I think I had the 6500K in there, which is a 6-watt bulb, and I swapped it out for the smaller light. Because when I was still raising clownfish, I had to keep the lights as low as possible, because you want your little baby clownfish to be focused on the one light that they have for them. and that way they stay up in the middle of the water column. If you have ambient light that they can see, you know, to the side of the aquarium or through glass, you know, that's why you keep the walls of it blacked out. They will go and they will try to swim towards that light, and then they might wind up stuck to the wall. Keep the light in the middle, and that keeps them in the middle. So, yeah, that's a lot of explanation for why I made a mistake and had the wrong bulb that I was thinking of. Yeah, it is pretty much up to YouTube, just like to decide not to censor me as far as whether or not I could actually be, you know, making a halfway decent living on here. But of course, there's just a lot of people suddenly popping out of the woodwork with brand new reef tanks setting up, you know. Kind of like a certain other topic I used to cover on this channel, how right when I went to that, just suddenly people were coming out of the woodwork. And it's not just a matter of what I noticed on the scroll, okay? It's a matter of, you know, you search by subject material, you find all the people of a given subject material. People search by this subject material all the time, and they're not finding me anymore. Just not allowed to. So who are the other people watching? Feel free to say hello in the chats. So you actually have a couple people watching. I wonder if they're real people. And you know, by real people I mean people with souls and stuff. As opposed to the normal NPCs that you find here. Pretending to be your viewers, pretending to be your content providers even. So, Joey wants to set up a reef tank. He can't afford it. Not even a nano tank? Not even a little tiny tank?
Yeah, do y'all have a Petco? Wait for the $1 per gallon sale. Give you a little 5-gallon tank for $5.
5-gallon tank. Buy some salt water from a Reefers store. Or you just mix up your own.
Cheaper to mix up your own.
Get a roadie unit because, you know, filtered water is good. You don't need bottled water when you have a roadie unit. What's up, Mr. Strider? Look at that. Actual real people watching. Granted, the same people. But, you know, better than nothing. The only thing I've been doing longer than anybody else, more than the internet, is reefing. One would think I would have a little bit of success. Just a little. Just a little.
Maybe.
Well, let's see here. What are we at today? We were at 1369. Then we were at 1323. Now we're at 1323 still. Oh no, now we're at $13.60. $13.60. Oh yes. Yep. So you can see why I'm so enthusiastic, especially with my whole computer crashing over and over again last night. You could tell I was in a great mood. Trip to New Mexico, yeah, that'll do it. and no more road trips.
Yeah, it'd be really nice if things would, you know, fall into place and stabilize.
Yeah, you could be our collector. You'd go to some of them. There's some importers in New York actually. They get frags and shit from Europe. That'd be nice. Going to hand pick some specimens. But anyways.
My mind is 20 million places.
Yeah. Mine too. Alright, enough of my ugly head on here. Let's, where okay. Why isn't that bigger? I don't know. Oh well.
I don't know where I'm gonna go when the volcano blows. Too soon? What?
Huh? What?
Sorry. Started singing Jimmy Buffett's Volcano, and then, like, I remembered the volcano exploding in Hawaii.
Oh, yeah,
and, like,
Hawaii, yeah.
Too soon.
Yeah.
What?
Wait, no, not this one. No, I'll just leave it there.
I was just saying this morning, I'm waiting for all those fissures that keep popping up to, like, literally split the island in half. I feel like
Maybe it'll land in the middle of Australia like the last one did. Whew. Or wait, no. I know where it's gonna land. And lo, a meteor the size of a school bus did land upon the heathen.
You shouldn't kick a cannon with a sandal.
What?
What? Said you shouldn't kick a cannon with a sandal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, okay. So let's get a little tectonic, shall we? Without mentioning the flirtiness. So, what's happened in Hawaii is supposedly magma is pushing to the surface.
Magma.
But you see, what contradicts that, to me at least, is the reason why they called for that reiterated warning last Friday, because the main lava lake in the main crater had lowered. Okay, so if the magma is being pushed up from the center of the earth with sharks and laser beams on their head, then shouldn't those sharks swim up into the... No. Shouldn't the main lava lake be raising, not lowering? What they're saying is completely counterintuitive. Okay? but easily explained by high pressure saline water, as in brine, geysering up through the main water table, causing cracks to form in the surface. Lava then leaks out of those cracks in the surface, and the whole system gets lower. Then the table water is allowed to mix on top of the lava, creating the explosive environment that they called for alarm about on Friday. So everything about this situation is proving that tectonic movement is the result of oceanic activity, namely brine oceans, not the result of magma, not the result of lava. Lava is the result of high pressure water being moved at extremely high speeds. Same way it cuts rock in a factory, same way it cuts steel, it can cut right through a mountain or some limestone with great ease. And when you think about the size of the hydraulic press that they use to cut steel, it is not the size of, say, America. You know? When you're talking about the hydraulic press that is used to cut these mountains, you're talking about a hydraulic press the size of a continent. That entire tectonic plate is the hydraulic cylinder. Okay, so you can't tell me that there's not enough force there to make lava. The math works out perfectly. Is water the most powerful element? Depends on what you mean by power. Now, just as Eisen would say, most people's concept of power is radically different from mine. Now, I would consider water the most powerful material. Certainly not an element. It is materia. It is a container. A neutralizer and a catalyst. It stores every mineral known to man. And can even store basically sonographic information. It is by far the most useful material, and nothing would be possible without it. Even a Big Bang universe model could not have cooled down without water. Interesting question. I think it'd be really cool to be on like a big ball floating in space that's filled with magma. I think it'd be awesome. I just, I don't see any evidence of it. I see a bunch of people who are obsessed with science fiction because it makes them feel like they don't have to go to church. And And it's really just that simplified in their own minds. So I don't feel bad about oversimplifying it. It was never God that was a problem. It was people. It was people repeating propaganda, people repeating lies, people repeating false interpretations. And the people who are all now atheists, people like them, their parents, their uncles and aunts, they didn't stay and fight for what they believed in. They took every opportunity as an excuse to give up. Well, lava doesn't have any water in it. The water is released immediately as steam. That's where all the steam comes from. Any water that would have been present would immediately evaporate because of the temperature. Water cannot exist in a solid state above 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Every molecule that reaches 213 becomes gaseous. So that grass is past like 14 inches long. It just keeps growing. You have to go in there with some scissors sometime. Take it easy, Joey. Anybody else got any questions related to reef aquariums, the ocean, the world in general? I don't care. Something mildly interesting has been happening with that grass. Right where that big rock structure comes close to the front glass, the sand has been getting blown away and has been piling up in the middle of the grass. Like the grass has been just kind of absorbing it and making it into a mountain. So it seems to me as the root structure of that grass is actually really good at holding in sand. So if we were to, say, plant that type of grass along some sandbars, it'll do a lot of good. Those sandbars would probably eventually just come right out of the ocean. They'd at the very least be able to replenish themselves whenever they got waked heavily. Good news regarding the non-aquatic species. Misha has finally been fixed.
Thanks.
Why you're not?
Thanks to a special program.
I had to take her all the way across town to get this little public paid thing. But it was worth it. Oh, you're kind of weird. Of course the sound was muted. I don't know why the sound was muted, but the sound was muted. So, this guy here, let me just add a new horrible view of myself. There we go. Oh yeah, that works. So, I need to be up there twice. This right here is the JBJ aquarium tool, and it's got these 4 little finger grips. You can kind of hold it like this, and you use your palm on this guy here, and it squeezes back and forth and opens up this claw here. And what I use it for is, if you hold it like this, it makes a nice little rake, and then anything you want out of the tank while you're doing your sand, you just pull it right the hell out. Works good. I've been trying to keep up with this sand in here, and you can see it's not getting the water dirty when I stir it. That's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be nice and clean. And this one being at an angle, this little grabber here, lets me get just under the rocks just a little bit, back into that cave a little bit. Under the rock, under this rock is where all the real shit is. See that? Look at that. Oh, look at that. I found it. Oh, God. Okay, still got a little work to do under here. Brown. I'm using the angle of this face that way. So basically, you're releasing that into your water. Now what? Now you want to turn up your return flow so more of that gets pushed out. And if you have variable speed wave makers like this, you turn up the flow. What I do is called storm mode. And you see it's all going to start blowing around in there. As it does that, I want to make sure I got my sand in the front all nice and even. If any of it that's poking up, any of it that is poking up, or in little hills, is going to get blown the hell around. So now with the increased return flow, and you see that wave maker is just blasting. all that stuff is going to basically stay suspended as long as it can. Some of it's going to get processed by the sponges. Some of it will even get eaten by the corals. And then the rest of it's going to go down into the bottom tank, where soon enough we will actually see it show up in this tank. The water in here will get cloudy, and that's where my protein skimmer is. And of course, more sponges. So you want to get that nasty stuff out of the sand, because it's clogging the sand. Okay, think of the sand as a porous filter that's always slowly moving and processing water. Once that brown, dirty detritus gets under there, it's only slowly leaching nitrates and phosphates into your tank. It's not a real major problem with that. It'll consume your alkalinity, it'll consume your calcium right out of the water, because that shit bonds with it as it gets released. But if you can just take it out of the sand and put it in the water column, it can cause a small nitrate spike because of the nitrates that are actually physically getting released while you do it. But all those nitrates should get taken up immediately by the plants, and whatever organic compounds that are heavily floating in the water should be removed by the protein skimmer. And then, you know, what's left, that fine organic residue, there's going to be everything from phytoplankton, zooplankton, and even bacteria that are going to grow in the water and start to consume it. And then any filter feeding organisms, sponges, anemones, corals, they will all just start to filter that bacteria right out of the water. Filter anything that's eating the bacteria, anything that's eating the plankton. And there are plenty of planktons, phytoplankton and zooplankton, that will just sit there and grow in your water without you ever realizing it. Zooplankton that eats off of nothing but bacteria, doesn't even eat algae. And then of course there's bacteria that eats other bacteria. But all that shit being locked up in the sand bed, it's basically like a clogged air filter. You know, just too much dirt and silt in there, and there's no flow. For your nitrates to really be constantly processed, your sand needs to be clean, because the bacteria that's, you know, now going to bloom in the water and cause it to stay cloudy for a little while until the skimmer can remove it. That bacteria is supposed to be growing all around every little tiny grain of sand and every little pore on every little grain of sand. But if it overgrows, if it's overfed, if it's over-sedimented, there's no water flowing around it. And the bacteria suffocates. And if it's suffocating, it sure as hell can't process any waste. And in fact, bacteria dying off can create even more waste. It's one of the reasons why I really don't like people quick cycling tanks. Because bacteria die-off comes in phases. And one strain of bacteria will die off and another one will need to grow to absorb the nutrients from that bacteria dying off. And then eventually, you know, like, as your levels get better, they're going to get worse Because there's bacteria that are really voracious that you'll have in your system at first. And then when the ammonia dies down, because your tank has had its first stage of cycling, that bacteria is going to die, and then you're going to get another ammonia spike, while some other bacteria grows, and a little bit more of that previous bacteria will grow and compete with it, because it dying off just caused its own ammonia spike. So then you'll have this kind of decreasing wave cycle of voracious and non-voracious bacteria. All aerobic, all growing on the rocks in the same places, all doing basically the same type of job. But some of them do them more efficiently than others in different conditions. Like some bacteria won't reproduce in high salinity. Some bacteria need brackish salinity. Some bacteria need the high salinity. Some bacteria overproduce in lower temperatures. Some bacteria overproduce in higher temperatures. That's why arbitrary numbers and arbitrary time frames can get you in a lot of trouble. What you want to shoot for is stability and steadiness. And even the way I was stirring that tank just then, a brand new tank that doesn't have anything in it, you still need to stir that sand. Keep that bacteria thriving and active. Keep it oxygenated. I don't know what to do with that little fucking mushroom. Huh. It is 1 out of 2 that I still know where the hell they are. Fucking Coincidence is taking over the goddamn thing. Yeah, later on. Start from the left side and get all the shit off of these rocks. Yeah. Be very careful around that mushroom because there's one little piece of codium holding it on there. And I need it to like somehow transfer itself. Which I don't fucking know. I don't know. It's just hanging on by a little tip of the fucking codium. Alright. Sand is getting severely kicked up in there. Time to turn the floor back down. Tiger Lily remembers who you are now, huh? Misha got home from the vet. Tiger Lily didn't know who the fuck she was. She was like, I don't know this cat, get her out of my house. It's actually as bright as it looks in there. I thought the title was pretty self-explanatory. I've been doing this 3 to 5 times longer than any other YouTuber. So I'm here answering questions just in case, you know, anyone has any. Yeah, any questions? I'm like Shinra. I know everything. And if you stump me, I'm not going to bullshit you, and I'm not going to Google it. I'm just going to tell you, I don't know that. You have found the limits of my knowledge. Congratulations. But, you know. Whenever Google employees or Russian internet trolls get bored enough, you know, they're welcome to stop by and ask questions. Because it doesn't seem like the general public is even allowed to see my streams. But, whatever you got, man. That is Caulerpa prolifera. That is what my mentor first got me setting up a refugium with about 10 years ago. I used to just basically any random Caulerpa I could get I would throw in my tank, because I used to focus on just keeping anemones and feather dusters and the like. Nothing that would be harmed by algae growth, you know. But you know, that was back in the 90s. But this here, it's a very manageable macroalgae. And I'm growing it in 3 different places right now. One in a 10-gallon, I got one in the one group almost as big as that, well, as wide as that right there, but not as tall, because it's in a 20-gallon long on my bottom system. See, this system right here has a twin tank right below it that's all planted. You would think it would reduce the amount of freaking Caulerpa that grew in here, but no, this one rock I got it had these pretty little green striped mushrooms on it. And this little bitty stem of this freaking shit. This one freaking macroalgae, this caulerpa in here. You see it taking over everything. It's growing on top of the codium. It's growing on top of other macroalgae. It's turning my rocks green. They look like they have algae on them. There's no algae on those rocks. Well, like minimal algae on those rocks. But I don't run reactors of any kind. I don't. I have a protein skimmer and a bunch of weight pumps. And I use media bags because I'm freaking old school. I have a stack, like a wall of Seachem Matrix and Flugel Biomax in media bags stacked around my return pump. So they get plenty of flow just like that. Just stacked around the return pump. And I keep a clownfish breed. I've shown it on other videos, but the lights are off down there, so I can't really show you right now. But basically my sump has a clownfish divider that's kind of at an angle, with rocks stacked up against it on the convex side, and oregonite sand, like pure oregonite, not the mixed Caribsea or anything, stacked up on the concave side of it. And because it's a clownfish divider, it only allows water through slots at the top and the bottom, while the top usually stays out of the water, so the bottom through the sand is where all my water goes. So basically that's my oregonite reactor running without any kind of CO2 or anything. I keep my top off ahead of that so the pH lowers before it goes into the oregonite, and the oregonite will add calcium and magnesium as it brings the pH back up. But I don't actually run acidic water all the time. Sometimes I use marine buffer, which is a very, very old school product that is still the best. You want to add basic calcium and pH stability, iodide, magnesium, strontium, marine buffer, and your top off water. That's all you really need. Unless you're trying to like grow coral. You know, if you're just trying to keep basic corals, marine buffer. You want to actually grow some coral, you want to keep SPS, you need a 2-part solution, calcium reactor, that kind of thing. But I have, let's see, I have some rainbow and orange Montipora, I've got a yellow Turbinaria, I've got a whole bunch of Hollywood Stunner, one Acropora, some green elkhorn, bird's nest. I can't even tell what it is. It's growing flat against the rock, but it seems like it wants to be bird's nest. I don't know, just like one little random, little tiny fingernail-sized piece, and it's just growing right in the middle of that rock. Now caulerpa's trying to take it over. Let's see, I got a single Duncan polyp, got a little acro frag right there, got some acans, got a flower pot, of course the 2 rose bubbles, Kenya tree, Tonga tree, blood polyps.
I would say if you want a coral that's going to grow fast, go ahead and get you a Hollywood Stunner, because that thing is freaking blowing up.
Man.
We've done
Yeah, look at the size of that chalice. That thing's been trimmed twice.
I was going to say we've fragged it like twice, huh?
Yeah. But you see, a lot of my methods here, and I'll go ahead and give you a view of this. This is not simply a couple of aquariums you're looking at here. I'm a clownfish breeder. Currently I'm shut down, but I still have like just 2 walls of fish tanks here. And we just had a Brucanella outbreak, so we're still running 2 quarantines. 1 quarantine down there on the right, and 1 quarantine on my ottoman. I have a piece of plywood sitting on an ottoman, and I have fucking $400 pair of clownfish in there. Because, you know, that's kosher.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, let me get this other guy off of here. This is the room here. We have normal civilian shelving with like wedding photos and shit. Yes. From this point on, it is all fish. All my supplies and extra filters and stuff up there. I left those boxes up there because I was doing a little video on the current wave makers, doing a little comparison video. Oh, they look alright right there for now, I guess. It's not like the wall's anything to look at.
They're not.
I use a lot of Seachem and New Life Spectrum. Not using that salt anymore, although I would still use it if I could afford to use multiple types of salt. Currently I use Instant Ocean and Instant Ocean Reef Crystals. Combination of both, depending on whether or not I want to add 2-part that day. If I'm going to add 2.5 gallons or 2 gallons of Reef Crystals, I don't do 2-part that day. But when I'm doing siphoning sand, or especially with these quarantines I'm running, I wind up mixing up 2 gallons of water almost every day. So I'll just skip the 2-part on those days. Go ahead and ask your next question. So anybody joining us here, I see we've got actually a few more viewers. That's amazing. I am Sean Morris. I've been keeping saltwater aquariums since 1987. Had my own fish tank in 1988. It's a 10-gallon actually. That I had a Picasso triggerfish, a blue damsel, I think it was a yellow-bellied damsel, and I had a scooter bunny in there. Because I was a moron. Because I was like, 8. And a scooter bunny in a 10-gallon with a Picasso trigger and a damsel. I should have just thrown a fucking yellow tang in there while I was at it, My dad had built a 65-gallon cube, and we don't even know the measurement of it, a 6-foot long by 1 foot by 1 foot tank. That was pretty cool. It's set across our entire back living room wall, which had a mirror behind that. So the tank was in front of a mirror, and that was cool. But anyways, so I've been doing this for 30 years. I've made pretty much every mistake there is to make, and I've largely been figuring things out as I go, because a lot of the methods that I use were developed before any other methods were there. And some of them I use out of stubbornness, some of them I use because they're the cheapest way to go. And well, the main reason why I like to share my experience is because reefing has become very elitist, in my opinion. And I think that more people should be encouraged to buy reef tanks. Because, I have a 2.5-gallon aquarium with a clownfish in it that I never do water changes on. Nobody can go wrong with that setup. Okay, and all you need is some codium. The codium acts as a filter. You grow codium in lower light, and it grows more dense, and it looks really nice, and it keeps your water very stable. Anyways, so we have another question. How about that? Just finished cycling my second tank. 10 parts per million nitrates. Any recommendation on how to start the refugium? Okay, first of all, how big is your tank? And what kind of stand do you have on? Because really, when it comes to stocking a refugium, it's about the amount of space that you have to work with. Now, for anybody who's thinking about building a tank to really get serious and actually try to keep stuff in for the first time, I highly recommend you don't need a 120-gallon tank for water stability. It's really not that freaking hard. Okay, I think that's intimidating when people tell you that you need a 120-gallon or bigger reef tank. This rack right here, okay, got space for 2 10-gallons at the bottom. Started with a 29-gallon on top. You could put a 10-gallon on top. You can put a 20-gallon on top. I have now upgraded it to a 55-gallon. And that, in 30 years, is the biggest aquarium I have ever purchased.
It was on sale.
The ones me and my dad used to build were bigger. But as far as the ones that I've had almost my entire reefing career has been out of a 29-gallon. I haven't had a Ritterai in a 29-gallon for about a year and a half. That was a long, long time ago. And the Ritterais looked entirely different back then. They were purple. Purple and pink. Now they're yellow and purple. What happened to the pink? If anybody sees a purple Ritterai out there, don't buy it, because it probably won't live. These new Ritterais that they have in all these different aquariums, it's a different strain from what they used to sell at PetSmart back in the 90s. Still hard to keep. Ritterai is a Ritterai. It's hard to keep. Almost impossible to keep even. You wouldn't believe the amount of lighting I had crammed over a 29-gallon. And the amount of hair algae I was growing because I was using frickin' tap water, dechlorinated with Stress Guard. No, not Stress Guard. Stress Coat. Stress Coat. Dechlorinated tap water with Stress Coat. Oh yeah. Okay. 40-gallon breeder with a 20 long. 8 gallons worth of refugium space. 8 gallons is not a whole lot of room for anything but like a mini Cheta reactor, the way you see like the guys on BRS TV do. You want to get, when you first put your Cheta in there, it might want to sink. Okay? Don't let it sink. Get yourself in that area, even if you have to put a little wave maker in there. Get yourself a nice little spinning current. Okay? And drop an air stone underneath that Cheta. Get that Cheta to float. And get it to float up into a little ball and spin around. And if you can get it to float without the air stone, that's fine. But I personally, I don't avoid microbubbles in my system. Now, see, the reason why people got an aversion to microbubbles, this was 20 years ago. Okay, it's because of return siphons, overflow boxes, where they have the little U-pipe. The microbubbles tend to get stuck in the U-pipe, and that's what everybody had back in the day. We didn't drill our tanks. We just had overflow boxes with U-pipes in them. So now, microbubbles bad is finally getting, like, I guess my channel has finally rubbed off on a couple of influential people, and they're starting to say, yeah, you don't just microbubble your tank sometimes, microbubble it all the time. And they're dropping in air stones right by their return pumps, just like I used to have. You get those microbubbles in your system, what it does is it turns your entire water volume into a protein skimmer. Essentially, allowing everything from fish poo to detritus and decomposed particles, dead bacteria, to stay elevated in the water column and thus be processed, as opposed to sinking. Because no matter how much current you think you have in your tank, there's still some dead spots somewhere, even if they're underneath and in the middle of your rocks. Well, if you have microbubbles attaching themselves to the sediments. They will tend to, you know, by percentage, by the numbers, okay, not overall, by the percentage, you know, the more oxygen, the more they do it, stay in the water. Now, I managed to keep few enough microbubbles to where I don't have any cloudy water problems, but then I don't keep very deep tanks front to back. All my tanks are a foot long front to back. So if I want to notice cloudiness from microbubbles, I got to look at it from the side view. So, you know, for me, it's not a problem. Also, once you've had the microbubbles in there for a while, that bacteria that's in the water that might be making your water cloudy to begin with, that just kind of fades away. And if you combine that with stirring your sand and you know, keeping everything elevated and keeping the pumps working, the calcium, the alkalinity, the magnesium, and even the iodide doesn't dissipate in your system. It'll still get absorbed by the corals, that's what you want. But the problem with nutrient sinks and the problem with allowing stagnant places to develop in a system is those basically become anti-calcium reactors. Okay, so every bit of water volume that passes by that detritus spot, all of the good materials that can be absorbed by your corals are essentially converted into toxic materials and just, you know, free radicals and just shit. You know, just shit floating around your tank. And some of it will even oxidize and just be removed from the water. And then, you know, you got to pay more money for more two-part solution. You got to pay more money for whatever it is that's getting out of there. So by keeping the sand stirred, by keeping the nutrient sinks to a minimum, you keep the consumption of those elements that you're paying money for down to what needs to be consuming it. Now, another reason why you might want to go with Cheta, especially in that small area, as opposed to a macroalgae like that Chlorpha prolifera right there, it also, you're running a relatively small system at 60 gallons total water volume. Cheta consumes less of those minerals too. Okay, so if you're going to use a big flowing macroalgae like that, it's going to need calcium, iodide, potassium, iron, and it's going to be constantly consuming those things, in addition to nitrate and phosphate. I mean, granted, it consumes the hell out of some nitrate and phosphate, but it has to have those other minerals to be able to bond it together to form its structure, you know? But, the reason why I don't use GFO or carbon is so I can keep things like pulsating zinnias. You know, like I got a wall of them on the back of this tank. Not that one. Let's use that one. I'm going to take that one off. There we go. So look on the back glass right there. Those are purple zinnias. They were on a rock that was touching that back glass. And they just moved themselves onto the glass and just crawled their way up. And that's where they are now. I like it. But if you don't have a steady natural wave of phosphate and nitrates being produced and removed, you know, at a stable rate as opposed to like an absolute scrubbing rate, you can't keep zinnias. They need the nitrate and the phosphate to live. Otherwise, they can't photosynthesize. So there's actually another misconception about zinnias. Another misconception that's spread by YouTubers and people on the internet that just don't have that much experience. Zinnias are photosynthetic. they need the nitrate and the phosphate to be photosynthetic. Okay, so it's not that they don't need the light, they just need the other chemicals to use the light. If I took the zinnias that are in there thriving right now and took the light off of them, guess what? They'd all shrivel up and die. So they're not like, I've heard this mentioned, that they're non-photosynthetic, that all they do is consume nitrates. No. I've been keeping zinnias for 25 years. You know, I've been having zinnias. They're one of the first corals I've ever got. And I see people having problems keeping them. And it's the same reason why your corals all of a sudden RTN. You have a scrubbed system. Okay? Now, when you're keeping a whole lot of fish, when you're keeping a giant system, when you're wanting to go on vacation, when the tank's too damn big to get in there and take care of the nutrient sinks, these expensive pieces of equipment are worth their weight in gold. Okay, none of them are rip-offs by any means. They're all good pieces of equipment. But people buy them before they need them, or people become too reliant on them. Okay? So, if I was to buy, say, a ferric oxide, a GFO reactor, okay, a rust reactor. That's what it is, it's rust. You're putting rust in your fish tank, and it works. That's fine. I wouldn't get a big enough GFO reactor to handle my system. That'd be out of the question. I would get one about 2/3 of what I needed. And I would rely on a refugium to help me visually monitor my phosphate levels. Okay? So, if I see that grass or chaeta growing well and looking bright green, I can maybe turn up the flow to that GFO reactor just a little bit. Okay, you definitely want it on adjustable flow. Okay, you definitely want to be able to tune any kind of scrubber that you put on your system, because you don't want it scrubbing too much. If you see that chaeta start to lose color, if you see those leaves, see what a Clerpa prolifera does. One of the things I think it's cool about it, it'll turn half of its leaf clear, and the minerals, the good stuff, actually gets reabsorbed into the stuff that stays alive. It'll sit there and basically cannibalize its own leaves and grow new ones, or just consolidate space. If you see your Chaetomorpha getting a little pale or dying, or if you see your leafy Clerpa starting to turn a little clear, that's because there's not enough phosphate in it to photosynthesize. Okay, that's what's making the pale colors. The phosphate reduction is just killing off, you know, the Zuzandelli equivalent in the plant. Then you need to take your flow on your GFO reactor, just turn it down a little bit. See if those plants don't come back. I'd turn it down halfway, actually, myself. I would turn it down halfway, wait till they came back, and then inch it down a little bit. Or inch it back up a little bit. Yeah. So, I don't even remember what the last question was, but anybody got any more questions? I tend to get on some halfway useful rants when asked about one thing, because it'll make me think of about 10 other things, you know? Now you might notice, if you are an experienced reefer, that I'm smoking around my reef tank. Well, That's why I keep all the plants in there. Plants help you maintain pH. Okay? At a lower pH, what happens is those nitrate spots, those detritus sinks, okay, those places where flow isn't cleaning things. The lower the pH is, the more active they become in removing the calcium and magnesium and other minerals from your water. So, if you have a stuffy house with a lot of people in it, if you smoke, if you provide extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, what that's going to do is lower your pH. Okay, so the way the calcium reactors that they have work is they're actually adding carbon dioxide to lower the pH of the water, and then the calcium reactor is supposed to bring it back up before it passes out of there. But what happens when just, the wave pumps are running on the top of the tank and it's mixing in your atmospheric air with the system, if you have a lot of carbon dioxide in that air around your system, the pH is going to increase and it's going to turn your whole tank into a calcium reactor. You're going to wind up with milky sand. That's a good sign your pH is too low, is if your sand is milky. And well, stirring that up and letting some plants grow will take care of that problem. And how often should you stir in your sand? As often as you can. I mean, I wish I stirred it every day. I don't, but I wish I did every single day. And I'm going to start trying to get better about that, because that JBJ tool is really cool. It really works really well. Now that I actually have, a proper tool for the job, that's motivation enough for me to be more vigilant about it. Maximo's tank is almost coming in.
Yay!
Maybe tomorrow it's going to be here. That's awesome, man. So he got himself a little 15-gallon nano. And man, I'm telling you, that is all you need to start off. The only worry that a small tank like that presents is with the top off. Okay? So if you get yourself a Zoomed reptile dripper, or like I use just a container, any container, a gallon or more, and really you don't even need 15 gallons. You could probably use a half a liter bottle with a bent piece of hose in there, rubber band around a loop so you can adjust the drip. Okay, just get it to drip, drip, drip. Just a nice slow drip. And if you see your water level rise, slow it down a little bit. So your break-in period while you're cycling your tank is the perfect opportunity to visualize the rhythm that you're going to need for your auto top-off. Now, some days the evaporation is going to be higher than others based upon, the climate around you. Okay? But overall, the most steady you can keep that tank without buying an osmolator or installing an expensive auto top-off system. And they've gotten a lot cheaper. But the idea is you're going to get a couple of millimeters, maybe a centimeter evaporation in a 15-gallon tank every single day. That's going to raise the salinity by about half a point. Okay? And then what you're going to do, if you don't have something dripping slowly, is you're going to take a jug of distilled water and you're going to pour in that water until it gets back to the line, and that's going to shock everything. Okay? And there's a lot of corals, and most fish, just about all fish, are going to be just fine with that. But for the microfauna, for the ideal bacterial growth, for the tank to really come to life, it has to be stable. Because in nature, It's stable. In nature, there's a constant amount of rain that perfectly balances out the salinity of the oceans. Okay? You can tell the baby Jesus thank you when you have the time. I like to picture him as a ninja. Anyway. So, while your tank is cycling, before you get anything sensitive in there, you adjust that drip, and you get it, just about right. And some days you'll have to adjust it a little bit, some days you won't. You keep an eye on that water level, and if it starts to get low, you increase the drip rate a little bit. If it seems like the jug's running out too quick, decrease the drip a little bit. But the idea is, you want to take about as much water as your system is going to evaporate in a day. In your case, it's going to be about a cup. And be careful not to provide more ATO reservoir than your system can handle without crashing it. So, if for some reason the rubber band pops and all that water goes into your system, you don't want it to overflow, and you don't want it to, make your water brackish. So that's the idea behind, just a daily checkup, a daily top-off on your top-off reservoir, daily check of the drip rate, and by the time the tank gets cycled, you should just know. You'll just have a feel for it. Anyway. Okay with it? Alright, so let's see what we got here. We got a fish tank. That's good. Let's get behind the ass on the screen. Let's look at fish tanks for a while. That's a fish room. It's a whole room of fish. It's not working, is it? I don't know. Lot me washed the way I cranked that thing. Now watch me, you. Okay, now the camera's practically in my freaking lap. Oh my god, let me get my foot around there. That's almost $1,000 worth of clownfish in one view. Nah, maybe like $700. If I still had Rangiku and Gin, dude, it's well over $1,000. Silly me getting depressed after my mom died. Why is that like that? So Max, what you think of my big clownfish cartoon? MS Paint at its finest, huh? Yeah, that's MS Paint. Because I'm a moron. And that's what I do. I use MS Paint for everything. Because, it comes with the computer. And that's as cheap as I need it. Fish tanks. Fish tanks. Yeah, so if I ever get a spawn out of Tatsuki and Yamachika, I'm hoping that's like the general look of those babies. I'm hoping they come out right in between their markings. But, you know, I'll probably get a variety. That's what you wind up with. That's what most people don't realize about true perculas as opposed to ocellaris. When you breed true perculas, there is just no telling what they're going to look like, man. It kind of cracks me up, actually. See, I did like a low-res version of it for the little splash icon on the corner there. And then I tried to make it big on this thing right here. But it was quite pixelated. So I had to go through and make everything all high res. That's high resolution MS Paint. Look, blow it up on a big screen. It's like, it's pretty copacetic, huh? Use the spray paint tool to make the background around it. First changing the background color to black, and then using the select square, delete, and then they'll fill everything and airbrush it in with the spray paint can tool. Now my little lower blue bar guy, I used the newer. They got some newer tools on there, like actual paint brushes. And I just smudged out over that's the same file. And if you look really close at that, you can see kind of like shadows of the resistance thing on there. It's not completely blocked out. It's subliminal. Yeah, subliminal. Subliminal resistificating. Does it have bloodshot eyes? Yes, that is a stoner clownfish.
That was my first thought too.
If you look at that clownfish, let me see. Alright, so if they were still for 5 seconds, you could look at them and see. Their eyes are kind of a little bit of a brighter tone. All up in that corner right now. See, I can't really. I know what I'll do. I'll pick up that entire 10-gallon and turn it around the other way. Watch. Look at that. Oh, what the hell just happened? What did I do? Okay. Well, you know, that might work. Well, not really. Just rotate. Flip. There we go. There, I flipped the apparent anyway. Alright. So Yumi has actually a lot of black going into his face. So he's got these bright yellow circles, but he's got like dark centers to his eyes. But Tatsuki, if she'd ever, turn around and face this way, her eyes look a little bit brighter than her skin. So it's not supposed to be bloodshot eyes. It's just supposed to be the bright eyes of the perculas. Oh look, it's a pair of Onyx perculas that are named Sean Morris. That's my name too. It must be their name. I read it on the internet. How you like the moving backdrop? Is that spiffy or what? I gave myself like the Clever Thought of the Day award for that. I gave myself 2 pats on the back. Oh yeah. What's Petey doing? Not dropping that like I am. Let's check in with Peter Everything here. Hell is he? Oh, that was confusing for a second. Somebody picked up my 10-gallon tank and turned it around the wrong way, and I gotta turn it back the other way. Oh god, that was heavy. Okay. Did I mention I'm a dork? Just in case that's news. Petey. What are you, afraid of the camera? Petey. Petey. Where'd you go, little dude? Petey. He's eating a bristleworm.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's just holding it in his mouth and it's squirming. Oh wait, that's great. Oh god, there's no way I can get it. Petey, come show us what you got. It's wriggling all over his nose. He's back there underneath that little filter. I'm sorry you can't see him better. Come on, show us your catch, Petey. Oh, I really hope he comes out and shows us. That's too fucking funny. There he is, backing out. If you just face his mouth towards the camera, There's a fucking big old bristle worm hanging out of it. Look, you can see just the tip of it was just showing. Oh, this is great. You got a fucking bristle worm. No wonder he hasn't been eating any of the food I've been putting in there. There are tons of bristle worms in there. He's just holding it in his mouth. Are you okay? Can you handle that thing, dude? Look, it's wiggling. Petey, that can't be comfortable, dude. Like, seriously? A bristle worm? You see it now. I'm going to try to manipulate this image here and zoom it in a little bit. It's really hard to do with this webcam. Let's see. From the bottom. And from the right. And from the left. Nope, too much from the left. And a little more from the bottom. No, too much from the bottom. There we go. Come closer, Petey. Got a fucking bristle worm. I don't know why this is cracking me up so much. It really is, though. Fish aren't supposed to eat bristle worms. Like, you know, 6-line wrasse will eat them when they're babies. Petey, should I not be laughing at you? Are you struggling? Are you okay? Petey, Petey, Petey. You alright there, dude? Need a little help? It's still squirming. It's still squirming on this end. It's probably still squirming on the other end. Oh, God. He's just such a tiny little fish. I mean, that's a fry filter behind him. That's a little sponge filter for the bottom of a, you know, like an AQUACULTURE. What is it, Tiger Lily? You want to help Petey with the bristle worm? Looks like he needs your help. You go put your claw in the water, see if he likes you. I don't know. Like what is his plan? You know, like clearly the whole thing could not fit, and he can't, or can he bite off the rest of it? Is he trying to chew the rest of it? Is he trying to just let it crawl down his stomach so he can digest it? You know, does that work that way? I don't know. I've never seen a triggerfish eat a bristle worm like this. Oh, did he? No, still hanging. I mean, I've seen him bite at the bristle worms before, so, you know, I assume he knows that there's fucking bristles on him, you know? If he dies, we know why. Hope you're enjoying your meal there, Petey. Just in case it's your last. Petey, Petey, Petey. What are you doing? Petey, Petey, Petey. Where'd you go? Come on, Petey. It's okay, honey. Come on. His little tea pipe is back there buried under the rocks. Where he sleeps. And he just ducks back there anytime he feels threatened. On him to be visible again. Back there on the left, behind that grass. Petey, are you okay? His mouth is clear. Petey, Petey, are you okay, honey? Oh, he's still chewing it. He's almost got it. you to see his face right there. He's got like the little tiniest tip of it hanging out of his mouth now. The thing must have been as long as he was. Like, it wasn't like a huge one by any means, but he was a tiny little fish. Soon and cure. He spat it out a little bit. What you doing there, Petey? that a worm in your mouth pouch, or are you just happy to see me? That's just wrong. Still hanging. I don't think he knows what to do. He's probably getting angry because he can't go eat more stuff. Like, fuck, I have to get done with this bite before I can take more bites. Damn it. Just spit out the tip of it. What you doing, Petey? So I don't know whether or not he is spitting out more of what's in his mouth, or whether or not he went and grabbed that piece that he spat out a couple of seconds ago. I missed it. Trying to make the camera angle wider. But either way, he's got another piece of bristleworm hanging out of his mouth. Still. And he's biting it again. He spat it out and took it back. Apparently he must like it. Did he finish it? You weird little fish. Ate a fucking bristleworm and liked it. You might wind up in my reef tank after all. You eat bristleworm shit. I'll be well fed, that's for sure. What you're doing. Really? Ah. So, anybody got any more questions? Anything else they'd like me to discuss? Otherwise, I think it's about time to call it a broadcast.
Broadcast.
Well, I guess that be all for now, folks. Thanks for watching. Please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Check your subscription if you are a subscriber, because I got a little bit of a problem where subscribers just kind of lose their subscription without meaning to. So, if you enjoyed this channel, if you might think you'd have any questions you'd like to ask me in the future, please do make sure you're subscribed, and go ahead and check the notification bell while you're at it. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great day. Peace.
In my heart, and baby down in my soul. You, baby, you can't take it no more. No, I know I'm walking out that door. The way you treated me too many times before. Oh, you know I want you there, I wanna be right there with you.